Inside maximum security, the darkest prisons in America. The breaking point. The screen fades to black. A siren echoes. Then, slam. The sound of a steel door locking. Inside America's darkest prisons, silence doesn't last long. In one moment, the yard is calm, and the next, chaos explodes. A guard is ambushed in the corner. An inmate, locked away for life, lunges with a sharpened piece of metal carved from the leg of a broken bunk. Blood stains the concrete. Sirens wail. Backup races in. But by the time order is restored, the truth is clear. This isn't just punishment. This is survival. And here's the shocking part. This happened inside a prison built to be escape-proof, the so-called fortress of steel and stone. If this is what safety looks like, then what else hides behind those walls? Pause. Music builds low and eerie. Today we go inside maximum security. From Rikers Island to ADX Florence, these are America's darkest prisons. But to understand how violence erupts in a place built to stop it, we have to start at the beginning. The gates of hell. Arrival. When a bus full of inmates pulls through the massive gates of a maximum security prison, the first thing they feel is the silence. The kind of silence that tells you nobody is leaving. Barbed wire spirals overhead. Guard towers rise like watchful eyes. Every step is tracked, every move controlled. For new arrivals, the air feels heavy. They're stripped, searched, given a number, and marched through echoing corridors. The clang of iron doors follows them deeper inside. Some whisper under their breath, "This is the end of the line." Life on the edge. Daily life here is nothing like TV shows or movies. Inmates eat at long tables, but no one dares to speak loudly. The wrong glance can spark a fight. Even the guards walk carefully, because they know respect is everything. The food is bland. The cells are tiny and time stretches endlessly. But beneath the surface, tension is always bubbling. Gangs control the flow of contraband. Alliances shift overnight. And in places like this, a single argument over something as small as a piece of bread can turn into all-out war. The first extreme event. One afternoon, during a routine lunch in the mess hall, the silence breaks. A tray crashes to the floor. In an instant, chairs scrape back, fists fly, and hidden blades flash in the dim light. Guards rush in, shields raised, but the crowd is too thick. Within seconds, chaos reigns. By the time order is restored, blood stains the concrete floors. Sirens echo through the blocks. The prison goes into lockdown. For the men trapped inside, one question hangs heavy in the air. If this can happen in maximum security, what's coming next? Lockdown, the aftermath. The riot left the prison shaken. Cells slammed shut. Every inmate was locked in. Meals pushed through steel slots for days. The air smelled like bleach as guards scrubbed blood from the mess hall floor. Inmates whispered through the vents, trading stories of who started it, who fell, and who might not survive the night. Tension was thicker than the walls themselves, but inside maximum security, silence never lasts long. A false calm. After a week of lockdown, the prison slowly returned to routine. The yard reopened. Men lifted weights, walked in circles, and kept their eyes down. Guards tried to act like things were back to normal, but everyone knew it wasn't. Behind the scenes, gang leaders were plotting revenge. They passed coded messages through laundry carts and books, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Life went on, but it was life on the edge. A single mistake could trigger the next explosion, the second extreme event. It happened during yard time. The sun was high, the air heavy. Two inmates locked eyes across the basketball court. One had been blamed for snitching during the mess hall riot. Suddenly, he was rushed from behind. A sharpened toothbrush flashed in the sunlight. The victim fell hard, guards shouting as chaos spread across the yard. Within seconds, men scattered, some joining in, others watching like spectators at a deadly show. The sirens roared again. Guards fired warning shots into the air. The yard turned into a battlefield. By the time order was restored, one man lay bleeding in the dirt, his fate uncertain. And the question remained, how much worse could it get? Shadows in the yard. Retaliation brews. The stabbing in the yard set the whole prison on edge. The victim was dragged away on a stretcher, his blood soaking into the dust. No one knew if he lived or died. What mattered was this. His gang swore revenge. For days, the prison buzzed with rumors. Some said weapons were hidden in the laundry. Others claimed a guard was being bribed to smuggle in razor blades. Even during meals, inmates sat stiff and silent, eyes darting, waiting for the next strike. Small moments of survival. In the middle of all this danger, some inmates tried to hold on to a shred of normal life. One man used scraps of paper to write poems in his cell. Another spent hours doing push-ups just to keep his mind steady. But survival here wasn't about strength or talent. It was about timing, knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to disappear. The prison may have seemed calm again, but it was the kind of calm you feel before a storm. The third extreme event. Then the storm broke. Late one night, as guards made their rounds, a fire erupted inside one of the cell blocks. Mattresses were set ablaze, flames licking the bars, smoke filling the air. Prisoners screamed, some banging on their doors, others cheering in defiance. Guards rushed to unlock cells, battling smoke and chaos, unsure if this was a real accident or a trap. Outside, the sirens blared yet again, flashing red against the dark sky. The fire was contained, but the message was clear. The prison wasn't under control. The inmates were. And the haunting question remained, if fire can rage inside the most secure walls in America, what comes next? The fire's aftermath. Smoke and silence. The fire left the prison in ruins. Black scorch marks spread across the walls, and the smell of smoke lingered for days. Guards worked double shifts, exhausted, their nerves frayed. Inmates coughed in their cells, some proud of the destruction, others terrified of what might come next. The warden ordered tighter control. Strip searches became daily routine. Meals shrank. Privileges disappeared. But instead of breaking the prisoners, it only fueled their anger. Inside maximum security, pressure like this never stays quiet for long. The mind games. Life returned to a twisted rhythm. Some inmates kept their heads down, trying to survive the punishment. Others played mind games, sliding threats under cell doors, shouting coded messages through the pipes, even carving symbols into the walls to send warnings. The guards knew something was brewing, they just didn't know when or where it would strike. The fourth extreme event. It struck during the night shift. As a guard opened a door to deliver medication, an inmate lunged forward, dragging him into the cell. Another inmate joined, and within seconds, the guard was trapped. His radio was ripped from his belt, his keys clattering to the floor. The alarm rang out, echoing across the blocks. Guards rushed in, batons raised as the prisoners fought like men with nothing to lose. By the time order was restored, the guard was pulled out, barely breathing. The prison's darkest truth had been exposed. No wall, no gate, no chain of command could truly keep the violence locked inside. And for the men who lived within these walls, one terrifying question grew louder. If guards could be overpowered, what else was possible? The breaking point. A prison on edge. The attack on the guard changed everything. Officers walked the blocks with fear in their eyes, and inmates felt a strange kind of power. Word spread fast. If they could get to the guards, nothing was off limits. The warden locked the prison down again. Meals were delayed. Yard time was cut. Tempers boiled hotter than ever. The line between order and chaos grew thinner by the hour. The illusion of control. Days passed in uneasy silence. Guards doubled their numbers, moving in pairs. Inmates shuffled through the halls in chains, their eyes cold and calculating. But beneath that forced calm, the gangs were planning their boldest move yet. Rumors swirled of tunnels, stolen keys, and maps carved into the back of food trays. Some said an escape attempt was coming. Others thought it was just talk. In a prison like this, nobody could tell the difference between rumor and reality until it was too late. The fifth extreme event. It happened on a stormy night. Rain pounded the roof, thunder shaking the walls. As lightning flashed, an alarm blared across the compound. Guards sprinted through the corridors. Cells were empty. Some inmates had vanished. In the chaos, smoke bombs filled the air, and shouts echoed through the dark. Floodlights lit the yard, revealing figures sprinting toward the outer fence, desperate for freedom. Gunshots cracked. Sirens wailed. The entire prison roared with panic and fury. By dawn, most of the escapees had been captured, but not all. One or two were unaccounted for. And as helicopters circled above, America woke to the shocking headline: Inmates escape from maximum security prison. If prisoners could break free from the most fortified cages in the nation, then nowhere was truly safe. The Manhunt. Panic beyond the walls. The news spread fast. Morning headlines screamed of an escape from one of America's most secure prisons. Police checkpoints sprang up across highways. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Towns near the prison went into lockdown, parents keeping their children inside. The escaped inmates had vanished into the storm. For the first time, the terror of maximum security wasn't locked away. It had spilled out into the streets. Pressure on the inside. Back inside the prison, the atmosphere was boiling. Guards punished the entire inmate population, cutting off phone calls, shutting down visits, and searching cells for clues. Inmates who had nothing to do with the escape grew angry. They whispered through vents and slid notes through cracks in the walls, furious that they were paying for someone else's plan. Meanwhile, gang leaders smiled quietly in their cells. They knew every lockdown only bred more anger, more desperation, and more recruits for the next strike. The sixth extreme event. Then it happened. During a tense cell inspection, an officer discovered a hidden weapon taped beneath a bunk. As he reached for it, the prisoner lunged, shoving him back. Another inmate joined in, and soon the entire block erupted. Prisoners banged on doors, shouting and cheering as fists and batons clashed in the narrow hallway. Radios crackled with desperate calls for backup. By the time reinforcements stormed in, the officer was down, blood pooling on the concrete. The prison went into full crisis mode, but the message was clear. Every attempt to tighten control only pushed the walls closer to collapse. And the haunting question remained: if America's darkest prisons can't control the violence inside, how long before the violence spills out again? The hunt continues. Ghosts in the countryside. 2 escapees remain missing. Police dogs' tracks, the muddy footprints through cornfields, but heavy rain washed away the trail. Neighbors swore they saw shadows moving at night, barns broken into, and food stolen from back porches. The manhunt stretched for days. Every siren in the distance made townspeople jump. For many, this was proof that the walls of maximum security weren't strong enough to hold back the nightmare. Cracks on the inside. Back in the prison, fear was turning into rage. Guards grew harsher. Inmates grew bolder. One prisoner carved into his wall, "If they can escape, so can we." The warden knew he had a problem, but his solution, More punishment, more lockdowns, was gasoline on the fire. The seventh extreme event. It exploded in the cafeteria. A group of inmates refused to sit, shouting at guards. Within seconds, food trays were hurled like weapons. Tables flipped, fists flying. Guards rushed in, shields raised, but the swarm was too much. The cafeteria became a battlefield. By the end, dozens were injured, both prisoners and staff. And the question loomed, was this a prison or a war zone? The divide, prisoner versus prisoner. The cafeteria riot left alliances fractured. Gangs blamed one another for starting it. Some called for peace. Others demanded blood. At night, the sound of fists against walls echoed through the blocks, prisoners sending messages of war across concrete and steel. The guard's dilemma. Meanwhile, correctional officers faced their own divide. Some wanted stricter crackdowns. Others feared the crackdowns only fueled more chaos. Morale sank. Rumors spread that guards were planning walkouts, refusing to enter certain blocks. The eighth extreme event. One night, the divide turned deadly. In the yard, a prisoner was cornered by rivals. What started as words turned into a frenzy of fists and blades. Guards blew whistles, but the crowd swallowed the victim. When the dust cleared, one inmate lay lifeless in the dirt. For the first time in years, maximum security had witnessed a murder in plain sight. Collapse in motion. The outside world reacts. News cameras camped outside the prison gates. Families of guards and inmates demanded answers. Politicians called for investigations. The prison's name became a headline. To the outside world, it was no longer a fortress. It was a powder keg. Inside the pressure cooker. Inside, things only grew worse. The murder created a cycle of revenge. Whispers promised more blood to come. Guards walked the tiers with shaking hands, unsure if they'd make it home alive. The prison felt less like a place of control and more like a volcano waiting to erupt. The ninth extreme event. Then came the eruption. During evening count, multiple blocks erupted in chaos at the same time. Fires blazed, locks jammed, alarms screamed. Guards tried to hold the line, but the riot spread like wildfire. Prisoners overran an entire wing, seizing makeshift weapons. Helicopters swirled overhead, but inside the walls, it was pure anarchy. For hours, the darkest prison in America belonged not to the state, but to the inmates, the reckoning after the flames. By dawn, smoke rose over the compound. National Guard troops lined the perimeter. Armored vehicles rolled in. Prisoners were dragged out, shackled and bruised. Entire wings were reduced to charred wreckage. The cost was staggering. Lives lost, guards injured, and the illusion of control shattered forever. A haunting question. In the aftermath, officials promised reform, new fences, more cameras, tighter rules. But for those who lived through it, guards and inmates alike, the scars ran deeper than any wall could contain. And one haunting question remained. If this is what maximum security looks like, what does that say about the system that built it? The fallout. The investigations begin. After the smoke cleared, the government stepped in. Federal investigators swarmed the prison, notebooks in hand, cameras flashing. They interviewed guards, warden staff, even inmates who dared to speak. The reports were grim: broken locks, understaffed cell blocks, contraband smuggled in through laundry and food service. The so-called darkest prison in America had cracks wide enough for chaos to slip through. Voices from the inside. Inmates who lived through the riot spoke in hushed tones. Some bragged about surviving the fire and blood. Others admitted they were terrified every second, praying they'd make it out alive. One prisoner whispered to a reporter, "We didn't start the war. We just lived in it." His words painted a picture the public couldn't ignore. The 11th extreme event. Then just when the nation thought it was over, a new blow came. A whistleblower guard leaked a video, grainy footage from inside the riot. It showed prisoners running free, guards beaten down, fires raging unchecked. The footage went viral overnight. News anchors replayed it. Families wept watching it. The world saw maximum security not as contrast, but as collapse. And suddenly the darkest prisons in America weren't just a hidden nightmare. They were a national scandal. The scandal, the nation reacts. The leaked video played on every major news network. Headlines screamed, "Inside America's darkest prison." Families demanded justice. Politicians pointed fingers. Human rights groups called the footage proof of a broken system. Suddenly, maximum security wasn't just a hidden fortress. It was the center of a national firestorm. The political stage. In Washington, hearings were called. Senators grilled prison officials. The wardens sat under hot lights, sweating, as questions cut deeper than any blade inside the walls. "How could this happen?" one demanded. "What's stopping it from happening again?" asked another. There were no easy answers, and the nation knew it. The 12th extreme event. Then came the unthinkable. During the investigations, documents were uncovered, records showing years of ignored warnings, broken security cameras, budget cuts, and violent incidents buried under paperwork. The truth was out. America's darkest prisons hadn't collapsed overnight. They had been crumbling for years. The reckoning, the shutdown debate. Pressure mounted to shut the prison down. Some called for reform, others demanded closure, but officials argued that closing a maximum security prison would only push the problem somewhere else. Meanwhile, inside, the inmates lived the same routine: locked doors, bad food, endless days. But now every camera lens was pointed straight at them. One final act. In the middle of this storm, another act of defiance struck. A group of prisoners staged a protest inside their cells, banging on doors for hours, chanting through the vents. It wasn't violent this time. It was a cry for the world to listen. The message was clear. They weren't just numbers. They were voices trapped in the system's darkest corners. The end of silence. Aftermath. In the end, the riots ended. The escapees were caught. Tea and the fires were put out, but the scars remained. Guards carried the trauma home. Families of inmates carried fear. And the prison itself, its reputation forever stained, stood as a warning to the nation. Outro. Powerful closing. Maximum security was meant to be unbreakable, a fortress of steel and stone. But inside those walls, violence, corruption, and desperation proved stronger than bars. These were supposed to be the safest prisons in America. Instead, they became the darkest. And as the gates close for the final time in this story, one haunting question lingers. If this is what happens inside the most secure prisons in America, then what hope do the others have?